In mid-August, someone came to visit me. Someone familiar to me. Someone who brings bad news. Someone who warns of death. You're listening to Ghostly Activities. I'm your guide, Jacob Rice, and this is The Visitor. It's Friday, August 9th, and something strange has happened over this past week. There's been an older woman. She kept appearing in my yard, like when I was outside watering the trees or my garden. I was in the back field and watering my new fig trees. And my field is pretty big, actually. It's about 2 acres, and it's got golden prairie grass, and I've got a collection of cedar, cypress, and fir trees that run down each side of the field. And near the gate where I enter, I've got this big white shed next to an orchard. So I'm watering these trees, and I'm listening to the news, and a woman walked out from the side of the shed. So shocked, completely shocked, okay? I dropped my hose and I started making a beeline right to the shed. And as I'm approaching this woman, she just turned back to the shed and gone. So I'm looking all around the property, all around the shed. I've got some of the trees are pretty big. You could hide back there. Nothing. And the other thing that was odd is I had the dogs with me, and they didn't notice her. So I'm panicked. I'm like, a stranger, how did you get in? I've got 6 feet high fences around the entire property. The entire property is about 2.5 acres. All the gates, exterior gates from the roads, they're locked. And I don't know how she got back there without my dogs barking. I mean, I've got 7 dogs, okay? They bark at everyone. I didn't really get a good look at her face. I could just tell that she was an older lady, 65 plus, and she kind of had this brown, maybe reddish type hair, glasses, kind of thick and dark, but I wouldn't be able to point it out, She was very pale. And so I go back in the house and I turn on the security cameras or, do the replay thing, and then pick her up. And I do have 2 cameras pointed in that area. And, I was a little freaked out, but that's about all I could do. And then Monday, August 12th came along. So I'm back by the shed again, watering a group of Leyland cypress that I have there. And in our garden, which is just on the other side of the fence that I told you about, there's the woman with the kind of dark brown reddish hair and the glasses. She was walking back and forth in the garden. So the garden's about 100 feet away from where I am, still fully fenced in area. And I yelled at her. I'm like, do you need help? Because I'm thinking, is this a silver alert kind of situation? And she just ignored me. But here's the weird thing. I've got LASIK. I got 20 by 15 vision. And I couldn't make out her facial features. It was like she was fuzzy. And everything else I could see clear as a bell in the yard. But it's like something was making her a little blurry. But I could tell she was probably a good 70 years old. That's I could tell that for sure. But I couldn't tell you much more about it. I mean, kind of wearing this light green short sleeve shirt and some khaki shorts. But the details just seemed to lack, even though I had a great focus on her. So I open the fence and I'm going to the garden now. As soon as I open up the door to the fence and to get into the garden, No one. I'm like, how on earth could the lady have gotten out of this? Because the fence I have there is probably a good 4.5 feet high. Like, you can't just leap over it, especially if you're an older lady. You know, the door to the garden was locked too. I have it locked because the dogs could open it and get in and tear everything up, right? That's what dogs do. And again, the dogs were outside. They didn't bark. I go to the security cameras. They didn't pick her up. Now, it's Wednesday, August 14th. It's the early afternoon. You know me, I'm back to watering apples and pear trees. I have a little orchard this time. And the dogs are running around in the backyard, wrestling with wrestling with the entire pack, creating a ruckus, okay? And they went quiet. So normally, you know, you got a bunch of dogs, especially 2 big puppies. You hear quiet, they're wrecking something. So I look up, and there she is. She's sitting in one of the patio chairs. She's no more than 50 feet away. And this time, I got a really good look. And she had this kind of wavy, tight, curly auburn hair with gray just peeking through here and there, thick framed glasses, pearl earrings, and the shiniest red nail polish and deep red lipstick. And I recognized her. She's my Grandma Jones. And Grandma Jones died in January 2010. So I'm approaching and I'm calling her name, Grandma. Grandma. And she just stood up and looked at me and then stepped to the side, which would be off the patio, and gone. Just gone. So I got the feels. I don't know if you've listened to Ghostly before, like, I loved Grandma Jones, okay? And she was more of a mother to me than my own mom or her daughter, right? And I would spend the summers with her. I would be out in the garden with her. I'd watch trashy primetime soap operas. We're talking like Dallas and Knots Landing. And our favorite show was Murder, She Wrote with Jessica Fletcher. I love Murder, She Wrote to this day. And so after being out in the garden and taking care of her yard and everything in the summers, I would come back in and she'd bake berry pies for me, or I'd have oatmeal raisin cookies and she'd frost them. That's like my favorite thing ever, oatmeal raisin cookies with frosting. And I never wanted to go home. I just wanted to stay at Grandma's. So Grandma Jones, she had visited me a few times over the past 14 years or so since her death. But each time I saw her, it meant something bad was happening to a family member. And in this case, my mother had been in the ICU with E. coli poisoning for about 5 days. And I didn't know until about a day after these encounters. And my brother sent me a message saying that our mom, had been in the hospital, and for 2 days, the ICU, they thought she would die for a couple of those days. I've always wondered, you know, why does Grandma Jones, I don't want to say harbinger, but, you know, the omen thing. I don't think it's intentional. It's not like she's causing it. It's just a warning, I guess. And in 2010, when she passed away, she came to me as a crisis apparition, kind of with a last message. And I was in a movie theater, and she told me to pick up the phone when my mother called. And when I did, my mother told me that Grandma Jones had passed away. And another time she came, my mother was also in the ICU, deathly ill. She recovered. You know, it's kind of nice to see her, I gotta say, even though this was a bit grim. I did put out some ghost hunting gadgets and audio recorders, right? Because, you know, I'm that kind of ghost hunting nerd. But there were no messages. And I can tell you, though, on Thursday, I work from home. I put it on the NBC streaming network, whatever it's called. And I just streamed Murder, She Wrote all day. And I drank the spicy sweet tea that she liked too. And that's my little story. I hope you enjoyed it. So if you like this podcast, please like, rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends and family about it. It all really helps. And with that, have a lovely day and take care.